love the Lord God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first. So good to see you. It's Mrs. B, and today we are going to be hearing the story of Joseph and his family reconcile, or the family reunion. Now, if you look in your storybook, you might say, Mrs. B, wait a minute, we skipped chapter 5, prison to palace. And you would be right. We are skipping ahead. But please go back later and read that chapter and discover all the things that happen to Joseph while he's in Egypt that makes him a person with a great deal of power that allows him to help other people. But right now, let me ask you to do something I do every week. Do you have your bag with all your supplies and your storybook and your notebook? If not, I'm going to ask you to hit pause and go get it, and we're going to have you dig through that bag and find a blank piece of paper and something to draw or trace with. So go do that now, and I'll wait for you right here. Welcome back. So there's a lot of traveling going on in our story today, which means a lot of walking. So I would like you to trace an outline of your feet, either barefoot or in your socks or shoes, it doesn't matter. I would suggest not using a marker because that tends to leave a mark all the way around your foot or your shoe or your sock, and that's not a good thing. So use pencil or crayon, something else. And I want you to trace those feet, and then on one footprint, I'm going to ask you to write, God is with me. And on the other footprint, I want you to write, wherever I go. So you trace your feet, and on one write, God is with me. And on the other, wherever I go. If you need to, you can hit pause and finish that and then come back. Later on, when you have time, you can color those in. You can decorate them any way you want. You can even cut them out. Put them on your refrigerator, on your bedroom door, somewhere in your house to remind you that God is with you no matter where you are, wherever you go. So our prayer today is going to be from this book, A Child's First Book of Prayer, and you might recognize this because some of you may have received this. The church gave these out to every child in the church, but it was 6 years ago, so you would have had to be attending 6 years ago. So if you don't recognize it, ask mom or dad and look on your bookshelf, so maybe you have it. They're just really lovely prayers. And today we're going to do the one that's on page 39. We've been talking about this generations of family, all the way from Abraham now down to Joseph, and all those generations. And here's a prayer about generations, and I thought it would be appropriate. So let us pray. Dear God, I think of the generations of my family through all the years of time. I think of how each generation has hoped that the children will grow up well. May I, who am the child of them all, keep faith with God and with myself and keep their hope alive. Amen. That's a great prayer. If you'd like to, you can go to page 7 of Spotlight. We did this last time, and you'll find Spotlight's the last half of your notebook. And there's this page here that says Family Portraits. Last time we drew a picture up here of the family that lives in your household. Down here it says My Extended Family. And I want you to draw a picture of someone in your family who does not live in your house. It could be a grandma or grandpa. It could be someone who's no longer living, but someone who's special to your family. And you can put that there and continue to lift up and pray for your family and love those who've come before you and have made the family who it is for you today. So that would be something that you can do now, hit pause, or save it for later after we're done together today. Okay, so our Bible verse. We do this every week, and if you were here with me last time, you remember that we went to the the back part of the primary leaflets and found this page, and we took it out and put it in the beginning. So if you haven't done that yet, you might like to. It's just easier to find every week, and we tend to read it or talk about it every week. So you can go and find that. And today is a way of helping us remember these words. We're going to put some motions to them, because sometimes if your body has a memory, it helps your memory in your brain. And we've been doing some motions that kind of go along with these words in our song at the beginning every week. So if we say, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone. You will love the Lord with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Keep these words that I'm commanding you today in your heart, and recite them to your children," like you're tapping 3 children on the head, to your children, "and talk about them when you are at home." Can you make a roof over your head? "When you are at home, and when you are away." Bye-bye. "When you lie down, and when you rise." Oh. Can we try that again? Let's see if I can help put it all together. So, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God, the Lord alone. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Keep these words that I'm commanding you today in your heart, and recite them to your children, and talk about them when you are at home, and when you are away, when you lie down, and when you rise up." So I hope that those words speak to your heart today and keep you this week. Our Bible story, as we continue through all of us, we're going to look at the pages 42 and 43, but they're pages that have the pictures on them. And if you have your book, you can follow along. If you don't, you can just listen. You can still get the story. The pictures just help us envision what's happening. And as I'm reading, I want us to think about what the people in the illustration are feeling. What kind of emoji would you choose if you were choosing an emoji to put on this picture? So we'll start out. Jacob's family was starving. Jacob sent 10 of his sons to Egypt to buy grain. He kept his youngest son, Benjamin, at home. What might they be thinking and feeling? Obviously starving, probably worried, certainly fearful to send your sons away as far away as Egypt. Now in Egypt, the brothers arrive, and when they see the governor who is selling the food, they bow down in front of him. They needed his help. That must have been hard for very proud men to do, right? Bow down. Who do you think this governor is? They did not know he was their brother. Joseph knew who they were, but pretended. He sent them home to get their brother Benjamin. It's a lot of walking. They just got there. They got to go back and get their younger brother. So they show this split screen here of how Joseph looked before and how he looks now. So they didn't recognize him. But also, I think it splits his emotions. I think he's feeling angry and not sure what he wants to do with his brothers. When they come back to Egypt with Benjamin, Joseph has a change of heart and is full of emotion. "I am Joseph," he told them, and began to cry. I think all the love he'd had for his brothers is bubbling up in his heart. He's so glad to see them, especially his youngest baby brother, Benjamin. The brothers, though, were afraid because of what they had done to Joseph. I wonder what they're thinking. Joseph said, "Don't worry, God sent me here to save lives." The brothers hugged and cried, and Joseph told them to go home, go again, gather the family and animals, and come back to live with him. And then the brothers did that and told their father that Joseph was alive and was a ruler in Egypt. Jacob was amazed. The whole family went to Egypt, and Joseph came out in his chariot to meet them. Joseph threw his arms around his father, and they cried for a long, long time. So lots of love, lots of tears of joy there at the end. So think about this. Here's a couple wondering questions. I wonder why Joseph was so hard on his brothers when he first saw them. Didn't tell them who he was, made them really sweat, made them worry, and then sent them home. Actually, the longer story says he kept one of the brothers in jail, and he sent the rest of them back to get Benjamin. And the brothers are so afraid that they did that. When they come back, Joseph does have a change of heart. But the brothers have been through a lot. First, they have to beg for food. Then they're afraid they have to run back home, which is miles and miles and miles and miles, get their younger brother, come back not knowing what's going to happen, and then have Joseph reveal who he is. They must have been terrified. He's going to throw us all in a pit now, throw us in jail. But no. He shared his love, and they were surprised, and he sends them to go get his father. Have you ever had a chance to hug someone like that father and like Jacob and Joseph did? It lasted a really long time. Can you imagine being away from your family for that long? What would be the things that you might miss? All the fun times you spend together, the meals, the times you laugh, even just the normal times, getting tucked into bed, waking up in the morning, having breakfast, all the holidays, sometimes the big things, but probably the little things. And if you've ever seen one of those videos they show sometimes online of someone in the military coming home and surprising their family, they've been gone for a long time, and the parents, the father or the mother will show up in school and surprise their children, and you'll see that kind of hug that Jacob and Joseph did. It lasted a long time. And even though they're so happy, there's lots of crying, tears of joy. Joseph had a lot to forgive when it came to his brothers. They had treated him very poorly. And yes, he had been led to a place of power, but he had some really rough times in Egypt getting there. But they're not just the big things that are hard to forgive. Sometimes it's the little things. So if we go back to Spotlight and go to page 19, we'll get to a page that says Small Acts of Forgiveness. So sometimes it just takes a lot of practice to get good at forgiving, to not go with that initial reaction of being really angry and wanting to strike back, but instead taking a breath, maybe count to 10, and doing some forgiveness. So let's hear a couple examples, and maybe you can think of something in your own life where you've had to forgive someone. And whether you did or not, this might be an example of how to do that in the future. So Micah ran for the front door. Just as he reached the end of the hall, he tripped over his little brother's toy car. Micah fell, slamming his elbow onto the floor. Michael opened his mouth and yelled angrily, "Andrew!" Andrew's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry," he said. Andrew hurried to pick up his cars from the floor. Micah thought about yelling some more. His elbow really hurt. Instead, he sighed and said, "It's okay, Andrew. Come on. Let's drive your cars outside together." So there was a big brother who had some compassion for his little brother and forgave him. Here's one more example. "Hey, Jasmine, wait up," Nikki called as she ran to catch up with her best friend. "I'm sorry I took off without you at recess." Jasmine bit her lip. She and Nikki had been planning all day to play basketball during their afternoon recess break. It had really hurt Nikki when Nikki ran to play a game with two other friends instead of playing basketball with her as she had promised. "Nikki, that really hurt me," Jasmine said. "I know," said Nikki. "I'm sorry." "It's okay," said Jasmine. "We're good. We can play tomorrow." "I won't forget," said Nikki. So again, Jasmine could have made a bigger deal out of it, and they could have ended up in a really bigger fight that would have lasted a long time. But instead, she practiced that little bit of forgiveness, and it made all the difference. I want to close with another prayer from the child's first book of prayer. And this time it's going to be on page 162. So if you end up having that book, you can look that up. And this is a prayer about forgiveness, all the kind of ways that we kind of can mess up and need forgiveness from others. And so we want to extend the same grace to them. Oh God, all that we ought to have thought and have not thought, all that we ought to have said and have not said, all that we ought to have done and have not done, all that we ought not to have spoken but yet have spoken, all that we ought not to have done and yet have done. For these words and works, pray we, O God, for forgiveness. And here's our little pictures again. So I'm going to close with a blessing. And you know what I really like about blessings is it just feels like I'm wrapping you all in a blanket of God's care and love. So let's go to our familiar blessing song as we close out. And I look forward to seeing you next week.
May God bless you and keep you. May God's face shine upon you. May God be gracious, and may God's face turn toward you and give you peace. May God bless you and keep you. May God's face shine upon you. May God be gracious, and may God's face turn toward you and give you peace, and give you peace, and give you peace, and give you peace, and give you